They say genius can be found in the most unexpected places, and sometimes the person who changes everything is the one nobody ever noticed. This story begins in a towering glass skyscraper, home to one of the most powerful companies in the country, a company worth billions, but on the verge of collapse. Inside its polished boardrooms, executives were panicking. A single problem, $100 million at stake, a single mistake that could sink them forever. And yet, the solution didn't come from the expensive suits or the highly paid consultants. It came from the unlikeliest of places, the son of a black cleaning lady. It was late evening when CEO Richard Sterling sat alone in his office. He was a billionaire, a man who had built empires with his decisions. But that night, his empire felt fragile. Stacks of financial reports sat on his desk. Red numbers glowed from multiple screens. Every projection screamed the same thing: disaster. His company had poured nearly $500 million into a new project, a revolutionary piece of technology. But there was a flaw, a single design error that made the entire investment worthless, and no one, not even the brightest engineers, could find the answer. Richard pressed his hands into his face. For the first time in decades, he felt powerless. Downstairs, away from the boardrooms and executive suites, someone else was working. Angela Williams, a black woman in her 40s, pushed her mop across the marble floor. She had worked in that building for years, invisible to the powerful men and women who walked past her every day. She wasn't rich, she wasn't respected, but she was strong, determined, and raising her only son the best she could. Her son, Marcus, was 12, curious, quiet, always asking questions. He would sometimes wait for her after school in the building's lounge, sketching math problems in his notebook while she finished her shift. To Angela, he was just her boy, bright, restless, full of dreams. But soon, the world would know him differently. That night, while Angela worked, Marcus wandered the hallways. He was drawn, as always, to the tall glass doors of the boardroom. Inside, he could see glowing whiteboards covered in equations, charts pinned to walls, and exhausted men and women arguing. Marcus tilted his head, eyes scanning the numbers. Something didn't look right. He wasn't sure why, but to him, it was obvious. He stepped closer, pressing his small hands against the glass. The problem that had haunted the company for weeks was something he could already see differently. But of course, no one inside noticed him. To them, he was just a kid waiting for his mom. In the boardroom, an argument erupted. Executives threw papers across the table. Some shouted for more consultants. Others whispered that maybe it was already too late. The CEO finally stood up. His voice thundered. "Enough! We're burning daylight. If this flaw isn't fixed, our competitors will bury us. Do you understand what's at stake? $100 million gone. And with it, our reputation." Silence followed, not because they had answers, but because they had none. Meanwhile, Angela finished cleaning one of the upper floors and returned to find Marcus sitting near the boardroom. She frowned. "Marcus, honey, I told you to stay in the lounge." But Marcus's eyes never left the equations written on the glass walls. "Mom, I think I know what's wrong." Angela sighed. She was used to his big ideas, his endless curiosity. But tonight, his voice was different, serious, certain. Before she could stop him, Marcus pushed the boardroom door open. Executives turned, irritated. A janitor's kid interrupting their crisis? They nearly laughed. But the boy walked straight to the whiteboard. His small hands picked up a marker, and with one stroke, he erased what the professionals had been staring at for weeks. The room froze. Executives exchanged glances. The CEO narrowed his eyes, about to demand the boy leave. But then Marcus began to write. Numbers, equations, connections the adults had missed, and slowly, the impossible problem began to unravel. No one could believe what they were seeing. A billion-dollar company saved not by the finest engineers, but by a child with a gift no one expected. And in that single moment, Marcus's life and the company's future would change forever. The silence in that boardroom was unbearable. Every executive, every engineer, every consultant froze as the 12-year-old boy raised his marker. Marcus's hand trembled slightly, but his eyes were steady. He wasn't guessing. He wasn't doodling. He was certain. The CEO, Richard Sterling, leaned forward from his leather chair. His jaw clenched. "What do you think you're doing?" But Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he began to write. Numbers, equations, symbols danced across the whiteboard. His handwriting wasn't neat. It was fast, raw, alive, like his mind was racing far ahead of his body. Angela rushed in behind him, horrified. "Marcus, put that down now. I'm sorry, sir. He didn't mean to." But Marcus interrupted gently. "Mom, wait. I know this." The executives smirked, whispering. Some rolled their eyes. One muttered under his breath, "This is absurd. A janitor's kid thinks he's going to solve what MIT couldn't?" But then, the equations began to connect. Line after line, Marcus circled flaws, corrected variables, shifted calculations. To the untrained eye, it looked like nonsense, but to the head engineer in the room, something clicked. His face drained of color. He leaned forward, his glasses slipping down his nose. Wait a second." The whispers turned into silence. The mocking smiles faded. Every eye locked onto the boy. And then Marcus stopped. He put the marker down and stepped back. "There," he said quietly. "That's your problem, and that's the fix." The room was dead still. The CEO rose slowly from his chair, his towering figure casting a shadow over Marcus. Richard Sterling stared at the board, at the impossible problem that had cost his company millions, at the solution that a 12-year-old had written in seconds. He turned to his chief engineer. "Well, speak." The engineer swallowed hard. His voice shook. He's right. My God, he's absolutely right. This changes everything." Gasps filled the room. Papers were dropped. Executives leaned forward, stunned. And for the first time in weeks, hope flickered. Angela put her hands on Marcus, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, he didn't mean to cause trouble." But the CEO raised a hand to silence her. Trouble? No, this boy wasn't trouble. This boy was a miracle. Richard bent down, his sharp eyes locked on Marcus. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus," he said softly. The CEO nodded slowly. "Well, Marcus, you may have just saved a $100 million. The room erupted. Executives rushed to the board, snapping pictures, analyzing his work. The chief engineer began scribbling notes furiously, muttering numbers, testing variables, and every time he checked Marcus's equations, they held up. It was flawless. Unbelievable. A child had just done what the best minds in the industry had failed to do. Angela stood frozen, unsure whether to be proud or terrified. Her son, the boy she had raised alone while scrubbing these very floors, had just rewritten the future of an empire. But not everyone was happy. Some executives scoffed, refusing to believe what they'd seen. One slammed his notebook shut. "This is absurd. He's 12 years old. He has no credentials, no training. This company can't